In this episode of the Orange Nerd Show, where we talk about everything except the theme parks, we're talking about the death of physical media. We're talking about Disney Plus. How can they improve this platform to get even better and better? I got Mr. Seymour Duck with me and Matthew Muir all the way from the UK up next on this episode of the Orange Nerd Show. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of the Orange Nerd Show. Today, we're talking all about streaming, and we're talking about physical media. We have a lot to discuss today, but before we get started, Mr. Seymour Duck, it is always an honor and a pleasure having you on, sir.
Hello. Glad to be back and nerd out with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, you can find me on X at Mr. Seymour Duck.
There we go. I follow this man on X. He does great content, a lot of insight on the financial world, Nintendo, Disney, all that stuff. So make sure you give him a follow down below.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And Matthew Muir is also on. Well, Matthew, you were on Twitter. Now you're not on Twitter, but you're still on Instagram, correct?
Yeah, I'm still on Instagram under the title Matthew Thomas Muir, all one word.
Perfect. And Matthew is a really, really passionate Disney fan. He cares deeply for this company, for its legacy. If you're into Disney, which if you are subscribed to us, you probably are, you should definitely follow him on Instagram. Are you going to come back to X eventually, Matthew, or are you not sure yet?
Not sure.
Okay, so we'll play that by ear. If you come back, we'll promote your Twitter. For now, follow him on Instagram. Okay, so these topics were actually Matthew's idea, right? And they're great topics, Matthew. I'm going to start with you. We're going to talk about physical media. In the age of streaming, and a lot of these companies are sort of like Best Buy and Target and all these retail stores, like the brick and mortars. They're getting rid of their physical media. They're not selling it anymore. You know what I'm saying? And everything is kind of going into this digital route. We actually just heard recently that Redbox went out of business. Now, I used to use Redbox religiously.
And we actually heard also that Sony Pictures were actually going to cease production of Blu-rays fairly soon.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Matthew. You're right. So there's a lot of movement happening with the physical media stuff, and it's kind of sad. Like I'm an older guy, and I'm used to the physical media stuff, right? And I used to use Redbox religiously. I used to go to Disneyland. I'd come home on the way home. I'd get a Redbox and watch a movie at night and stuff like that. But Matthew, what do you think, man? What do you think? You think physical media is finally dying out, or do you think it'll live on in some form or fashion?
I honestly think it is kind of dying out at this point. I actually think that it started dying out as far back as 2017 because a lot of studios, not just Disney, actually stopped putting special features on their DVDs to give people more incentive to buy them and reserve the special features only for Blu-ray releases.
That's interesting. I mean, I don't even know where you can buy a DVD or a Blu-ray player. Like, do they even make those anymore? So it's even harder. It's even hard just to find the hardware to even play this stuff. Even like Apple, their laptops, don't have. They used to have like DVD slots, and they don't have those anymore. Go ahead.
I remember that, and I remember Steve Jobs saying that we're not going to support Blu-ray because it's already dead. So why even support it in the laptops when they were going to transition from DVDs to Blu-ray? And they're just like digital. And I think part of it was because they wanted to support their iTunes store and sell more digital copies. But yeah, they paved the way to basically kill the CD drive or I guess in this case, a Blu-ray drive for like PCs. Even my PC, I don't even have a DVD drive or anything like that.
So how many years, Seymour, do you think we have before it's completely obsolete? So right now you can still find this stuff, but it's pretty hard. Do you think like in the next decade maybe or so? Or even
I don't think it's going to be obsolete. I think it's going to be like vinyl. It's still going to be there. Like books too is still going to be there. From books, people transition from books to digital books and even transition to audiobooks. But still, books are still a place, and people still want to buy books. You can buy books off Amazon, or in Canada, Indigo. But it's just going to be a more niche product going in the future because nobody buys CDs anymore. They just listen to Spotify or YouTube. Nobody goes buys DVDs or Blu-rays. They go on Netflix or Disney Plus. We're evolving, but I still believe there still be people there. It's just that they're not going to manufacture as much as they used to.
Yeah.
And it'll be like the way of the vinyl. So just a niche market for them. I think that's what's going to happen. It's sad to say because, technology is evolving. We have to go further. And I don't even think we can get to 8K with Blu-rays, if I'm not mistaken. And it's going to take so much space that everything's just going to be digital.
Yeah, we're moving in that direction, absolutely. And like you said, time marches on. It's sad, we're all nostalgic for this stuff, but like I said, I was a big Redbox person. I was always renting movies out of Redbox, very convenient. But what can you do? You know what I'm saying? Now, one concern I do have, though, with the whole everything is digital streaming kind of thing is, when you own a physical copy of a movie, that's the movie. You have it. It's set, right? It's on your bookshelf. You're good. The problem, I think, with like everything streaming is that like these studios can go in and like alter the films. Like even Disney is, well, I love Disney, right? But like they were guilty of this even with like Disney Plus. Like they were altering like Splash, that old Touchstone movie where Daryl.
Yeah, and they even altered like the color schemes of certain movies.
Well, I didn't know that. That's interesting, man.
Like, for example, with, Cinderella, what they actually did, they actually ended up cleaning up so much grain, but some of the line work was actually removed in the process.
See, that's interesting. See, so they can kind of like mess with this stuff and they can change it and everything, which is one thing I don't really like about that. That they can go in there and do that. I guess there's an option. I haven't personally done it. Maybe you've done it, Seymour, where like on Disney Plus and stuff, you can download some of these movies. Is that correct? If I'm not mistaken.
But on like mobile devices, offline download or Netflix. But that's for like if you wanted to go, let's say, going on an airplane or something and wanted to watch it. It's not more of a downloading it, the actual episodes itself. You can still download like shows off like Amazon or the Apple store. You can but they're not physical, they're digital copies. But people have issues with that as well because I remember people having issues with Amazon where they owned a digital copy of a movie, but then because of some issue with the studio, they weren't able to provide that copy anymore, but yet you paid for it. So it's like, do you actually own that digital copy? And you see that in the sector for gaming as well. People don't want to own a digital copy because what if the store, for example, let's say the Wii and the Wii U store, they're shutting down and those games that you bought digitally, you can't play them anymore. But if you bought the physical copies, you could always play it without any restrictions. And you see PlayStation and Xbox moving to only digital, but then Nintendo was like, no, we're keeping physical because we don't want that presence of the consumer base who wants to own the games even prior to the existing of the platform itself.
That's smart. That's smart on Nintendo's part. And Nintendo has always kind of, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not as privy on the Nintendo history, and Seymour like you are. There was a point in time where Nintendo didn't want to discontinue the cartridges, right? I believe in like the late 90s or something. They wanted to continue that for as long as they could.
Yeah, they were very old school and they wanted to keep with the cartridges. They went from Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and then N64. And then for some reason they went to GameCube with the smaller discs because they thought that would combat copyright. It didn't. And then they went with the Wii, but now they're back to cartridges. And I think that's the smart way of doing it because you can add more physical. The games, you can add more into it. And it's smaller and you don't need CDs. And CDs, a lot of it's wastes space in a gaming system, right? But unfortunately for PlayStation, Xbox, right, they have Blu-ray players. If you're looking for a Blu-ray, you can get those. But they're looking at other options where it's an optional accessory now if you want to get a Blu-ray player. You have to pay an additional $50 to get it on the new PlayStation. Yeah, I think the PlayStation 5 Slim, it's an optional accessory that costs $50 extra. I mean, that's a good option if you want it, but you can see the way they're paving it. They don't care about it, and especially Xbox, where their main focus on is Xbox Game Pass, where it's like you actually don't have anything, not even a game system. You just have a service, and they provide you the games.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, now Matthew, are you a gamer at all? Are you into video games?
Absolutely.
You are. Okay. So what do you think? What do you think about what Seymour just said in terms of like the gaming and the direction they're going in with that?
I honestly think it is only like a finite move. Like it can only preserve these physical media for so long.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's crazy because you're seeing so many moves being made like in retail and stuff. Like I said earlier on in the show with like Best Buy and all these companies, and they're not carrying a lot of stuff anymore, you know. And like I think Seymour hit the nail on the head when he was saying that it's going to be a niche market. It'll be like vinyl. People collect vinyl. It's a niche thing. It's fun, you know. I think that's kind of what it's going to be eventually. I got a few movies here that I got. Like now, for me to buy physical media personally, it has to be something that I really, really love and cherish. You know what I'm saying? I don't just buy like random movies. Like the Star Wars stuff, I love Star Wars. A lot of the Disney animated classics, I get those on physical. But for the most part, I'm not going to buy something on physical unless I really, 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 really love it. You know?
Yeah.
Is that how you were, Seymour?
I was that way at one point, and then I just gave up.
You're just like,
I used to own all the seasons of Seinfeld. And I started collecting Simpsons as well, except that, and including that one boxy set that they have where it ruined the whole thing, and you can't put it in any room with shelf because it's just a weird design. But anyways, yeah, I used to own them, and then I just sold them. It's just like there's no point. I could just go on Disney Plus and watch all the Simpsons episodes. I know there was a lot of backlash because they were trying to put a widescreen and like, oh no, why are you putting a widescreen? You got to get it back to the original aspect ratio. But yeah,
I remember that.
One of the reasons why people like physical media because you can't change that. But yeah, The Simpsons, Seinfeld is on Netflix. Like, I see no reason for me personally, at least, not to own it anymore because I'm already paying for these streaming services. Why would I need to go back? As a kid, I used to watch movies all the time, even Disney movies, VHS, keep rewinding it over and over again. Terminator, Judgment Day was the one movie, even a kid. My dad loved that movie. I loved that movie. And I just kept rewinding it over and over again. But now we don't need to do that. We can just go on streaming and just watch it.
Yeah, exactly. There's a huge convenience factor with streaming, you know, like I can go on Disney Plus and I like a lot of the old school Disney movies, you know, so I'll rewatch Pollyanna, you know, I'll check that movie out. I'll check out like Treasure Island and stuff. It's just so easy to go on there and just search it and click it. You know, you don't got, like you were saying, Seymour, you don't got to rewind it. You don't got to fuss with like putting the DVD in or whatever. It's so easy. There's downsides to it, like we've discussed in the show, but like for the most part, it's convenient and it's definitely, you know, the future. Now, speaking of,
I agree. I was just going to say, I agree. Convenience and cost, because now you don't have to pay for all those DVDs, or you just pay one service.
Or even Blu-rays.
Right, exactly. Because like, think about how expensive that would be. Like, you have a service like Disney Plus. You have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of titles on there. You know how expensive that would be to own all that physical media? I mean, you would have to have a whole house to store that stuff. You got all of that for like what, like $8 or $9 a month or something like that now. So you're right. It's definitely cost effective. And people still complain anymore about how expensive these streaming services are. I'm like, do you not realize how much content is on your fingertips for like $8 a month? It's a lot of content, you know? So it's crazy. But speaking of streaming though, let's talk a little bit about Disney Plus, right? And Seymour, I know you've dipped into this a lot. There's been a lot of conversations on Twitter about Disney Plus, and even what is that other streaming service called? Tubi, I think it is.
Something like that. Tubi, yeah.
Right, and so Disney's trying to work. You know, look, it's no secret. They're trying to get They're trying to become profitable. They're trying to make the streaming stuff more profitable for them.
They haven't reached that point yet.
Yeah, I mean, they're moving in the right direction, but yeah, it's been a challenge, a journey, so to speak. But, you know, like, look, I mean, there's always room for improvement, right? I mean, Bob Iger said that he wants to focus on quality, which is a good thing. I've heard a lot of complaints. I haven't seen it yet, but I've just seen a lot of talk on Twitter and stuff that Acolyte is sort of lacking in the quality department a little bit, and, you know, for how much it costs and things like that. Mm-hmm. So they do want to focus on quality over quantity. And that seems to be a direction they're going in. But Seymour, I'll start with you, then I'll go down to Matthew. What do you think about the future for Disney Plus? Like, how can they improve upon this to make it even better than what it is now?
Just to confirm one thing, did you say that it wasn't profitable, Disney Plus?
It hasn't reached that point yet.
No, it has actually. $43 million from their last quarter. I just wanted to fix that point. Yeah, they exceed. Yeah, I didn't think it was going to be profitable as well, but Hulu was already profitable, and now Disney Plus is profitable with them, and they're making $43 million. They're not losing money, so that's the great thing. And it's working. Bob Iger has shifted. Bob Chapek made a mess with Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Because what happened with you see, like, even with the show the Acolyte, right? That was a COVID show, and a lot of the shows during COVID, their budgets got extended, times were constrained because everything was happening because of COVID, and because of that, you didn't have enough money, and Bob Chapek was just like, we need shows, we need shows, we need shows, and it was diluting the quality of it because of that. You see She-Hulk, and She-Hulk was terrible quality. The CGI was bad. They ran out of episodes, and they were cutting and pasting a lot of these the episodes to look like it was linear, but it wasn't. It was terrible, and because of that, a lot of people are making excuses with like, oh, the superhero fatigue, and I don't believe that. I think it's just, if a story was great, you would see it. You saw that with Guardians of the Galaxy. It did really well because the story was really good.
Well, and superhero fatigue is like The Boys is one of the most popular shows on streaming right now, right? I mean, it's crazy that you're right, Seymour. It's just if you make a quality product, people will watch it. I don't believe in fatigue either. I think if it's good, it's good.
The closest we've ever come to superhero fatigue is probably with the after the Tim Burton Batman movies in the late 90s. That's probably the closest we've ever come to actual fatigue.
Yeah, some of those Batman movies weren't the greatest, right?
And Joel Schumacher is still apologizing profusely for it to this day.
Poor Joel, he's still apologizing for it. That's funny. That is funny. But like, yeah, go ahead, Seymour. I do apologize.
Oh, sorry, but yes, to go back to my original point. So Bob Iger stated many, many times that his focus is on quality, not quantity. Right? Push it back, and it makes sense. For a streaming platform where you have like really good IPs that people know around the world, you want to focus on the quality. You don't need that quantity. That quantity can go elsewhere where it would be general entertainment, where the cost goes down. And that's why you're seeing this movement of Hulu being merged in with Disney Plus to fill that gap. And I, like I said, Bob Chapek ruined that. But you don't need to. And I some of the things I've seen with Star Wars, I don't think you need to make all these series with Star Wars. You can make a streaming movie, and it would be fine. Or you could just release that movie in the movie theater and you cover some of the costs, because those IPs, if you put more money into a streaming movie and the quality is better, why are we sacrificing that for a streaming movie, like a streaming series? And that's what happened, I think, with the Acolyte. Because of COVID and all this stuff, it happened. You sacrifice quality. But now, like I said, Bob Iger is trying to bring that back in. Focus on that. You're actually seeing some of that in the streaming stuff. And the movies. And you're starting to see that with Inside Out 2. The quality is back. The movie is back because COVID is not ruining the things. And, it takes a couple of years to bring back all of this, because people think it just instantly will happen. No, these stuff were in production for years. And now we're starting to see that ramp up quality again, focusing.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that, Seymour. And I've made that point too before. A lot of people don't understand that. They think this stuff is instantaneous. Like, oh, look what Bob Iger just did. No, Acolyte, these shows and movies, they're years in the production pipeline. Years. The stuff you're seeing today is a product of like 3 and 4 years ago. So you're absolutely right. Like, the Acolyte is a COVID era thing, right? Kenobi was definitely COVID era. Like these shows were impacted by that pandemic. So that's a big element here. Now, should Disney get their costs down? Absolutely. But it is sort of like unfair. I see a lot of people on Twitter and stuff saying like, these costs are so high and look what they got for it. That's, I get it. It is high. But like you were saying, Seymour, this stuff was impacted by a pandemic. So it's not all just Disney just being wasteful. This is stuff that also was baked into the cake a little bit with this pandemic. So it'll be
If I may make a point also about missing content.
Sure.
Do you think there's any way Disney could maybe expand their library, like try and dig out content from years ago that they haven't touched for years? And I know this is going to sound very controversial, but as for films like The Elephant in the Room, Song of the South, and also films like You'll Be in My... No, not You'll Be in My Heart, So Dear to My Heart, those... What I would do if they were to ever try and upload them onto the streaming service again is just put a disclaimer on before them, and maybe even try and back them up with like a 10 or 15 minute mini documentary. And I'm sure that way the people would realise just how mild the problematic elements really are.
Well, that's interesting, Matthew. No, people have brought that up before, where you put a warning label, or like you were saying, even could put a small little snippet, maybe from the CEO or whoever's in charge, at the time when it gets released, saying, "Look, this is a movie that was a product of its time. It no longer reflects the values of the Walt Disney Company. This is why. Yada yada yada." A lot of people have been advocating for that. I think Warner Brothers does that with some of their movies. They do have like a disclaimer. That's an interesting move. I don't know if they'll do it. The thing with Song of the South is that that movie has been so taboo at Disney for so many years. Like this is even before Bob Iger came into the picture.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, this is like Michael Eisner era, like the late to mid 90s. I mean, early to mid 90s or something like that. I think
early to mid 2000s.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Early to mid 2000s, where Michael Eisner banned all sales of the movie. So it's been a taboo thing for a while. So Disney would get a lot of heat. I mean, a lot of heat if they were to bring that movie, even with a disclaimer. But what do you think, Seymour? Should they do that? Should they expand their library, even the controversial stuff, and maybe just add some disclaimers, or is it best just to kind of leave it alone, like not deal with it?
I'm thinking this of like two ways: the fans and then the normies, the general audience. I don't think the general audience would care. I don't think they're gonna the movies that happened in the past, even controversial or not. I don't think if they're not there, I don't think they will notice it's not there. And I think
they basically just take it or leave it.
Yeah, I think Disney will recognize that and saying, why put all that controversy in place, right? When the normies, the people who are actually subscribing, won't even care.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. There's a lot of old content on Disney Plus. I've kind of combed over a lot of it. I've watched a lot of it, and a lot of the stuff, like what's that one? I think it's called The Galloways, if I'm not mistaken, about the geese or whatever. I watched that movie. That was great. You know what I'm saying? But it's like that's the kind of movie like the viewership on that is probably so low. You know what I'm saying? And even if they were to bring Song of the South back, it would probably be a similar situation. Like to Seymour's point, how many normies are really going to sit and watch that thing? And, I know it's a hot topic amongst our community because it's like, we're all super into this. We're super fans or whatever. But the normies don't care. Not just for Song of the South, but like even like some of the older stuff, So I'm sure Pollyanna doesn't even get a lot of viewership on Disney Plus, stuff like that. And that's kind of an older movie, but it's more popular. So I don't know. That's interesting. But now, Seymour, do you think so they're making moves here, with Disney Plus. Where do you see in like the next 5 years? Where do you see this with this streaming service?
I think that Hulu and maybe ESPN merges with Disney Plus, and that'll be the platform from all content for Disney, regardless which department. And brings me to another point, which is why I think Dana Walden is going to be the CEO of Disney, because right now I see a lot of focus on general entertainment for Disney. If you look at all the FX stuff, all the series from the 20th century, they are the ones that are getting the awards, the nominations. Right now, for Emmys, right? 183 record-breaking Emmy Award nominations. And the top two was Shogun and The Bear from FX. Those are streaming shows. Those are doing well. People tell me that Disney Plus is a failure, but then you don't look at Hulu. And then outside of the US, we don't even have Hulu. We have all that Hulu content already built into Disney Plus. It's going to get to the point in the US as well where Hulu just merges and everyone just figure out that FX is Disney. And it's already been 5 years since they bought Fox. It's time to recognize that those content are now Disney-made content, and they're being produced, and they're high quality at a low price. And like I mentioned, it fills the gap. And guess who's in charge of all of that? Dana Walden. Yes,
and that's why I'm bullish on Dana too, Seymour. I really think that she's the one. It's hers to lose. A lot of Park people think Josh D'Amaro. Look, he's in contention for sure, but I think it's Dana. I think it's Dana. She's proven herself. I think she's way more capable. I think she's done a much better job with her division than Josh has with his.
I think it's a done deal at this point.
You think he's a done deal at this point?
Yeah, I think unless they go with an external candidate like Tom Slaggs or Kevin Meyer, Dana Walden is the done deal for the internal candidate.
Yeah, well, and Disney has historically they've chosen studio people, and rightfully so. You know, a lot of park people don't want to hear that, and it makes them mad, but it's the truth. Disney's a studio first. You know what I'm saying? And go ahead.
I was just gonna say, was Chapek a park person?
Yeah, he was a parks and products guy.
First, he was actually from the home video division in the early 90s. He was the man who actually pioneered, that releases would only be available for a limited time.
The Disney Vault, right?
Yeah, that was what he pioneered. Then in 2014, he was promoted to the position of parks chief.
Yeah, then he was a parks guy.
Okay, because I was thinking like maybe they should have got someone who understood the content that's coming from streaming services instead of getting a guy from parks, and that's why he spent so much money, and that's why the service was getting diluted with the quantity instead of quality, because he didn't have that grasp of understanding of what was happening. I know he had a friend that was a Wall Street guy that he hired on, and it was telling him to keep investing into Disney Plus, keep pushing. But Bob Iger was saying that no, he wanted it, quality first. Yeah. And even with Disney Plus streaming service, increased the price by $1. He didn't want to sacrifice the quality of the company and all the money that they had into that streaming service. But then, COVID happened and all this happened, and then Chapek happened. Yeah.
Oh, his friend Kareem Daniel, I think is your friend.
Yes, that's the guy. Yes.
Yeah. He was like a hedge fund guy or something, wasn't he? Or something.
Yeah, exactly. And he was telling Chapek to keep investing. And then I heard rumors that the execs were getting tired of it. They were forcing the Kevin Feige and them, right? Forcing them to produce content that they don't have budgets for, and the quality was losing it. And they had enough of that. So they spoke to the board. The board fired them on a Saturday night. And then the next day, Bob Iger's back.
Yeah. Yeah, it was absolutely wild. I'll never forget that. I was at a Friendsgiving. And I'm on my phone, and I'm like, wait, Iger is back, effective immediately. And this was from Deadline and all these major trades. I'm like, this has to be real. This is crazy, But the other thing that Seymour, you bring up a lot of great points here. But the other thing too, with Josh D'Amaro, he's overseeing the parks division right now, and the parks division is a very stable division of the Walt Disney Company. So there's a lot of margin of error there. He can kind of mess with it, and it's going to be fine. The problem that I have with him being CEO is that we're going through.
He doesn't understand the studio side at all.
Not at all, Matthew. And that's the thing. We're going through a seismic shift right now on the studio side. A lot of people will say it's just Disney, it's just the big bad mouse, whatever. But it's not. It's all of them. I mean, Warner Brothers is going through the ringer. No one's talking about that. They want to split up again. Okay, it's getting so bad over there. But Hollywood in general is going through major stuff right now. I don't feel comfortable with Josh. I don't think he can navigate those waters. He has a hard time making decisions on on what attractions to build or whatever. He can't make a decision. We can't afford to have this guy running the studio at such a turbulent time. It's got to be Dana or like you were saying, Matthew, like Tom Slaggs or Meyer. Those guys are very capable. I'm surprised actually that Iger passed over Kevin Meyer initially, because Kevin Meyer was the acquisition guy. He was Bob Iger's acquisition guy, his right-hand man for all that stuff. And that was most of Iger's legacy was rooted in those acquisitions. I don't know. I don't know what Chapek did to convince him, but it was wild, absolutely wild. But Matthew, I'm going to pose the same question to you that I posed to Seymour. Where do you see Disney Plus in 5 years?
I think it is going to be profitable. There probably will be some more or old content on there, but there will probably be quite a few more. Maybe a few more mini-series. Okay. Like a lot of Star Wars and Marvel mini-series. Not full-length features, but short TV series, 2-parters, each episode being an hour or so.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because with those miniseries, you can kind of keep the quality and stuff. You just kind of, have it for maybe two or three episodes. Each one's like maybe like an hour or something,
and treat it like it was a full-length feature.
Right. Exactly. Now, Seymour, I kind of want to dip into a little bit of the Warner Brothers situation. We've been talking a little bit like in the DMs, like so Zazzy wants to split up Warner Brothers again. He wants the streaming and studio will be on one thing. How's that work exactly?
Yeah. First, I just want to say that a lot of people in the DMs were messaging me talking about FX and how FX is the new HBO, and a lot of people are not watching HBO on Warner Brothers. The only show that being recognized right now is House of the Dragon, but that can't survive the whole platform.
Right, exactly.
But you can see that from the company itself, right? It's like it used to be where the general entertainment from Warner Brothers was high quality, and everyone would go there, and then Disney would be, for animation. But now it's like you go for Disney for animation, and now general entertainment, and you don't go for any of that for Warner Brothers. As soon as Curb Your Enthusiasm was over, I stopped watching HBO. There's nothing there. Everything I have is on Netflix or Disney Plus. Right. There is nothing there, and I'm assuming a lot of the normal casual viewers are feeling the same way. There's nothing there for them to watch, and I think that's what's happening. And the company's not getting a lot of money that they're hoping for. The growth they're not getting they're hoping for. So what they're doing now is it's rumor, but they're thinking of spinning off again after getting spun off by AT&T, then merging with Discovery, the cable companies. So they want to merge. I'm like, and then put the debt within that. And
it's another humiliation.
So it's almost like they see cable dying. So let me spin that off, put all the debt within that, and then we'll survive the studios and the streaming.
Wow, dude. So we're back to square one again, basically, because it's crazy.
I think it all started a few years ago with Batman versus Superman. It all started with the onset of the DC Extended Universe, so convoluted and so disjointed that even Jeremy Irons took a dim view of it, because he played Alfred, Bruce Wayne's butler.
Yeah,
even
and he was
Jeremy Irons laid into Warner Brothers.
Yeah, and fun fact, he was also the voice of Scar in The Lion King, right?
Yeah, and he returned in Once Upon a Studio for the first time since 1993.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, Warner Brothers is really, I don't know what's going on over there, man. It's funny because I was kind of excited going into the Zaslav era. I was like, this guy seems like, before he did anything, right? Stuff I've heard and what he did with Discovery, he seemed like he knew what he was doing. I was like, okay, this guy's pretty exciting. Like maybe Warner Brothers is back, And as he got in there and what he was doing, it was just one disaster after the other. I mean, he was really rivaling Chapek with the bad news stories, In
many ways, he's worse than Chapek.
Honestly, probably, Matthew. Probably. Yeah. What do you think, Seymour? You think Zazzy's worse than Chapes?
Yeah, because they have all these IPs, they have all these franchises on the platform, and they're not doing anything with it. They don't have the money to do it. I remember they were saying that, we're not going to make a lot of shows for streaming or movies. We're going to put them out in the movie theaters, and because they want to focus on the cost. But it's still not working. But yeah, he's worse than Chapek. And the funny thing is, on X, we hear a lot of things, even just Bob Iger now, right? How Disney is a failure, the streaming service is a failure, but they never want to look at the other side. They don't want to look at Peacock. They don't want to look at Paramount. They don't want to look at Max. No. And I don't even know why they rebranded from HBO Max to Max.
That was so dumb. HBO is your brand. Like, go with the thing that everyone knows. Right? It doesn't. I never understood that. Like, you go with Max. HBO is the brand everyone loves. That was the weirdest choice, man.
And then they're like, hey, we're not going to make any more streaming shows. They're going to put it on HBO linear because of cost. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And then now they want to spin off to take out the debt. That's it's like raising the white flag. They've lost. And I can see the same issue with Paramount, but since they got bought out, things can get fixed now.
Well, that's interesting. I want to come back to that actually, because I know you've been following that as well. But like the thing with the narratives, and we talk a lot about this on this channel, Seymour, like you and I would, but with context, right? The thing is if you're pushing a narrative, Disney went woke, now Disney's going broke, right? That's the narrative out there. Okay. Well, if you provide context and you actually report on what Warner Brothers is doing and how they're sinking ship right now, and you report on the failures of Paramount and this, that, and the other, Disney doesn't look so bad anymore. And that's why they don't report on that stuff. If your whole messaging is Disney is a mess, you can't.
They just have to ignore everything else.
You have to. If you report on the other stuff, Disney doesn't look bad. So you have to ignore it.
And a lot of the times I see them reporting on like the small things for Disney instead of the overall company. They'll look like, oh, look at the movies. But they're not looking at Disney Plus. They're not looking at parks. They're not looking at sports. Like Disney is not just movies in the movie theaters. And they have a flywheel. And, and that's the great thing about Disney. And in a way, Comcast as well, because they're now pivoting their linear service to theme parks to get that high margin business up and running. But the flywheel is what makes Disney great. So if one section of the company doesn't do well, you still have your cash cows coming in from the parks, and they're trying to make streaming a cash cow that replaces linear. And then you have sports, and then they added sports betting as well. There's a lot of things in Disney, and now they're trying to do gaming with the metaverse. They're working on a lot of things to expand their businesses. But when you look at Warner Brothers, you look at Paramount, they don't have any of that.
No. Now, what are your thoughts, Seymour, on, because this is kind of new. I mean, the merger was confirmed between Paramount and Skydance. What are your overall thoughts on this?
I think it's great because now it's going to boost them up and focus on quality. I don't know how it's going to work out because maybe they're going to be less reliant on streaming and focus like what Sony does and make content for everyone else. I don't know. But I know Skydance, the person from Pixar is there with the animation, and they can probably fix that.
Yeah.
I forget his name.
Lasseter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know there's some controversy with him, but he's there with Skydance Animation, and I saw a lot of reports saying that he's going to basically be in charge of Nickelodeon, and they're going to merge Skydance Animation with Nickelodeon, and if he did what he did with Pixar with Nickelodeon, I'm all for that. If we're getting good, if they bring back old IPs that we used to love on Nickelodeon, Rugrats, fix Rugrats. They released Rugrats on Paramount, and it's the exact same as the old Rugrats, but they just made it 3D. But then they added more modern themes to it, where there's no husband. Yeah.
Oh, there's no dad.
Lil doesn't have a dad. It's a lesbian mother. But yeah, there's a lot of weird things they did, and they didn't focus on quality. They just basically ripped it off and made it 3D. Yeah, nobody talks about that, but
no, exactly. If that was a Disney show, there'd be 1,000 videos of it on YouTube. You know what I'm saying?
But yeah, there's a lot of weird things like that where they don't focus on the quality. They're just scraping the bottom of the barrel to see what works. I mean, a lot of people like the iCarly reboot, but then they didn't have enough money to do it another season. They're saying they're doing a movie. I don't know. But, a lot of these old IPs that Nickelodeon had, bring back all that. That was the SNL for kids. And I mean, if you bring these back in and, people will come and watch. If you had all that on Paramount and every Saturday a new episode comes in, I'll be there watching it.
Oh, me too. I used to love that show. The beginning, I'm not going to sing it. I'm not a good singer, but yeah, the theme song was fantastic. And also the other shows they used to do on there, like the game shows were really fun. Like the Double Dares, the Legends of the Hidden Temples, those kind of game shows are really fun, I think, for young people. I think bringing stuff like that back would be great. Nickelodeon has really fallen in more ways than one. I mean, there was a whole controversy with, what's that guy's name? Snyder, I think his name is. Oh, the guy who he's in some hot water. I forgot the guy's name.
He was exposed for some behind the scenes stuff on Drake.
Right, exactly. Some really horrible stuff. But Nickelodeon has really, really fallen, not just with that scandal and that whole thing, but even just with the quality, it's really dipped. So hopefully the Skydance move, and you got Lasser now involved, you can get the quality back in there and make some good stuff.
There's only a certain point you can cover up everything with SpongeBob.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. I actually have a little bit of a little bit of Nickelodeon in my heart because actually when I was a young kid, I interned there, with the Cat Dog Show and the Angry Beavers and stuff, and it was fun.
See?
And yeah,
If you bring those back in,
come on, right? That was good stuff, man. That was the Nicktoons back then were fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Did you watch a lot of that stuff, Matthew?
Yeah, I used to watch a lot of it. Nickelodeon until the late 2000s was really good.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they can get back on track. This is an opportunity for them, so we'll see. So, gentlemen, fantastic conversation. It was great having you both on. Seymour, I will start with you, sir. If you could let everybody at home know where they could find you on social media.
yeah, you can find me on X at Mr. Seymour Duck, where I'm doing some research on a company called Cover Corp. Apparently, it's a company where they have virtual anime girls.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, it's called Cover Corp.
Yeah, well, they own, yes, that's the parent company, and they own a company called Holo Live. I think that's pronounced it right. But yeah, I don't know why, but apparently everyone's into it. And even like the Dodgers game, they came in, they were singing songs, having drone show, and I'm like, baseball players are looking at this like, what? It was very odd, but everyone's there. The lines were packed. It was like a sold out show. If you wanted to get merch for these anime VTubers, there was a line that was like, yeah, it was super long. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, let me research on this and see if I should invest. Because I'm like, even if I don't understand it, I seeing the potential of it from other people. And I'm like, okay, let me see it. Because when I look at the numbers, it kind of reminds me of Nintendo. No debt, reimbursing back into the company, a great CEO, and I'm like, that's the type of companies I like. So yeah, if you go see me on X, I'll be covering that soon.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Interesting, man. Very interesting. Matthew Muir, it was awesome having you back on, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you can remind everybody where they can find you on Instagram.
You can find me under the name Matthew Thomas Muir, all one word.
There he is, all the way from the UK. Matthew, I know it's hard with the time differences and stuff, so we do appreciate you. What time is it there right now? Just out of curiosity.
1:45.
Oh my gosh. Okay, get some sleep, brother. And Seymour, thank you for coming on too. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Comment down below with all your thoughts on everything we discussed today. The streaming stuff, the Paramount situation, the Warner Brothers situation, physical media. Is it dying? Is it already dead? What are your thoughts on that? Comment down below. And thank you so much for watching this episode of the Orange Nerd Show.